Hey, how are you guys? It is Harrison Barron, the Millennial Entrepreneur. Now, in this video, I want to talk to you guys about all the factors you are not taking into consideration when it comes to selling your product. This is a common business owner problem and almost always happens when they're first starting the business, myself included. I made this royal mistake and it cost me more money than I'd ever like to admit or tell anybody about. And this is because I improperly priced everything I did until literally a couple months ago. So I ran a business for 3 or 4 years, stressed out of my mind, not that I could afford any hair loss ever. This was a major problem and it took me forever to realize it. And that was pricing improperly on the goods and services that I delivered. Now, I run a digital marketing agency called Growth Generators, and at my agency, we specifically provide social media and SEO services, along with conversion rate stuff, but that's all kind of technical jargon. What's important about this is the fact that when I first started, I never charged enough. And because of that, I had this mental roadblock that never allowed me to charge more for the services that I had already rendered, because I had already sold services at the lower price. So to paint a picture for you, my first clients were $300 a month and $750 a month. Now, right off the bat, the $750 a month one was probably way closer to being okay than the $300 a month client. The only nice part is the $300 a month client was willing to come to me, and the $750 a month client I had to go to. Both of these prices were way underpriced, and here's what I've learned along the way. First thing is how much money did I want to actually make per hour? That was a massive mistake that I made. Overall, at $300 an hour, you might be thinking, or $300 a month, you might be thinking, well, that's pretty good if you only work a couple hours. The problem was I was meeting with this person on average 2 times a week. Every time I met with this person, I would meet with them for 2 to 3 hours. We'll call it 2 to be on the safe side. So we just went from 8 hours to, or 8 times a month, to 16 hours. That sounds like a reasonable amount of time, but here's what I didn't include also in there. I would also spend 1 hour to 2 hours afterwards working on his content. So that was cutting up videos, making sure that they looked good, running them through stabilizers, fixing the audio if there was bad audio issues, figuring out the locations that we were gonna shoot at, potentially recording 3 or 4 or 5 times and watching all of them to see which one was the best. So let's just figure 2 hours for being with the client, 2 hours for editing and posting afterwards. That is 32 hours per month with one client, and I was charging $300. That is less than $10 an hour. But I went to go start my own business so I can go make more money. I had a similar problem with client number 2. I went there a little less, but I would spend more time there. So I would only go once a week, but I would spend on average 3 to 4 hours, sometimes even 5 hours recording content. Once again, that's 5 hours per week, times that for an entire month. You're talking about 20 hours. Plus, I had to go back and watch all the content, edit all the content, post all the content. Figure 40 hours for that entire period. So after it's all said and done, I'm making, if I'm doing my math correctly, a little less than $20 per hour. Now, at the company that I was working for previously, I was making more than $20 an hour. Not much more, but I was making more than $20 per hour. So I left my business to go work for 2 clients that were making me $1,000 a month. And I was working more than I probably should have for both of these clients. This set a principle in my mind that my time and energy is worth whatever I think it's worth to whatever client. So people would ask me, hey, how much for social media services? And I would tell them, oh, it's $500 a month. Oh, that includes me going on site. Some of these clients were 45 minutes away, keep in mind. That's gonna be me recording everything, posting everything, and even still, people said that that was super expensive. The problem with undercharging that I didn't realize is you get some of the worst clients out there. Now, I'm not saying that that's the case for all clients, but people that are attracted, and people knew that that was a cheaper number, were the biggest pains in the butt ever. I would get emails and texts at the most ridiculous hours. There was no respect for my free time on the weekends. Overall, and I loved those clients, and there's nothing wrong with that, and that was me learning as a beginning entrepreneur. I'm not complaining, but I'm telling you this because I don't want you to fall in the same traps that I did. There was no respect for that. They understood that the deal that they were getting was crazy good, and they never realized how much time it would take me, and I didn't realize how much time it would take me because I never sat down and did the math. Fast forward, I started getting clients at about $500 a month. That is not that much money. If you really think about it, between me traveling, right? Let's just say you're a half hour away. It's an hour for each meeting, just traveling, not including an hour or 2 or 3 for being on site. Over time, I wanted to get better equipment, such as this camera, such as a microphone, lights, tripod, additional lighting. All of these other aspects come into play. Carrying case, memory cards, the list, extra batteries, the list goes on and on and on and on of all of these things, all of the stuff that I wanted for my business, but I could never really afford it because I wasn't charging enough. Not only was I not charging enough, but I didn't communicate with the client in my sales process that I have all of this additional equipment. Now, I did first start out on my cell phone, so I didn't have to buy anything extra. The audio quality was better on an additional microphone, a stabilizer, a selfie stick, once again, tripods. All of these other aspects come into play. Now, granted, you buy these at a one-time fee, but you still want to earn your money on them. You provide more value because you have a 4K camera. The background is nice and blurred out a little bit because I have a higher end lens on here. My audio quality is much better because I have a good microphone, I'm not using the internal microphone on the camera. So not only was I making shekels in the beginning, but I was also buying equipment to try to provide a better product, and I wasn't charging more money for. And this is the problem that I see over and over and over again. People think that they're going to undercut, they don't realize what their time is worth, they don't understand their scope of work that they're starting out with, and they also don't think about what other things do they want out of their business. Do they want to work with higher end clients? Do they need better technology to work with them or tools to work with those clients? These are all aspects that nobody ever thinks about. So when you're first starting out, my first client, if I was meeting with them 2 hours per visit and twice a week, that should have been, if I wanted to make $50 an hour, it should have been $100 a visit. $100 a visit times twice a week plus editing. Even if you don't charge for editing, that's still $200 per week or $800 per month. I was $500 off from making $50 an hour. Now, $50 an hour for some people might be a lot of money, but you gotta remember, I was paying for office space. I wanted to buy another camera so I could provide a higher quality product. I had software that I had to pay for. I had all of these I had to pay for gas if I was going out to a client. This client happened to come to me, but I still had to pay for the office, water, electric, all of these other bills come into play. External batteries, even if I was using my phone to record everything. This is kind of the general math that I tell people that they should use. I don't know what your hour is worth. My hour in New York is probably much cheaper here in North Carolina, and it's probably cheaper in Alabama. Whereas in California, it's probably equally or more expensive than it would have been in New York. So figure out how much money you want to make per hour. Is it $50 an hour? Is it $25 an hour? Is it $100 an hour? Once you have that number, start to figure out how much time your work is going to take and be realistic with it. Add in a little bit of a buffer, charge a little more. You're better off charging a little more and having a little bit of flexibility than charging less and being in a pinch. Number one. Number two, understand that your equipment should be at a rate of about 5% of whatever you're charging. So if you work for a client for 10 hours a week, you should be charging realistically an extra $50 just for equipment costs. This is going to provide you with a new laptop, graphics cards, lighting, cameras, whatever additional stuff you need. 5% is a good number, 10% is a great number if you can go there. The third thing you need to think about is how much is insurance going to cost you? If you're leaving your home or office ever for a client, you're probably figuring between $3 and about $8 to $10 per hour for you to actually go on site. That's a general rule of thumb. Is it exact? No. Once again, depends on where you live. There's always caveats to the whole thing. If you do not leave the office, figure you're probably around 50 cents to $2 per hour if the client is coming to you. Remember, you got to have insurance in case something happens on site. Whatever that may be, inside or outside of your control, you still have to have insurance so that way nothing can happen to you. You have to add that on every single hour. Keep in mind, you may also need additional insurance for your technology. Maybe you're using a more expensive camera. Maybe you're using a drone. Maybe you are using a gimbal. Whatever your technology is, you have to think that there may be additional insurance you need to provide for your equipment alone. That's a you thing that you have to figure out. I do not know what that would be in your situation. Once you have all three of those done, tally it up. That is going to be the bare minimum number that you can work with on somebody. After that, you should be able to add a 10 to 20% buffer just so you're safe. So if you know a client is going to take 10 hours per month of you, charge them for 12. Worst comes to worst, you make a little money. Some months you're gonna win some months you're gonna lose some, but that is the bare minimum. A good rule of thumb is double that number. That is a great rule of thumb. So if you wanna make $50 or $100 an hour plus insurance plus taxes, you should charge $200 an hour. That'll give you plenty of buffer space to add in for maybe you miss a day of work, maybe you get sick and you can't pay bills. This gives you that buffer, and that is the thing that I wish I knew back in the day. Charge almost double what I thought my time was worth. So if I thought my time was worth $50 an hour, I should have been charging $100 and change with all the additional expenses in there. This goes for every single client. Whatever it is, double it. When you start losing most of your estimates, that's when you're charging too much. But other than that, charge more. It will make your life as a business owner, it'll make your life as starting up as a business much easier. It'll give you the freedom to do all of the things that you want. Maybe it's hire a marketing agency, maybe it's hiring professional photographers, maybe it's just hiring staff, maybe it's buying vehicles, right? There's other expenses in there too. Maybe you have to buy a bobcat or a forklift. All of these expenses add up. So whatever it is that you're doing and you think, hey, I'm gonna charge, $125 a month for this package, double it right off the bat. Or use that general formula of how much money do you wanna make, what's insurance gonna cost you, what are your overheads gonna cost you, and all of these features will then play into your final number. I promise you, if you follow this, you will start your business light years ahead of just about everybody else. It's getting dark out. I'm gonna head back in my RV. Love you guys. I'll see you guys later. I hope you guys find value in this, and hit that subscribe button and like button. I really appreciate it.